not be thrown up on my floor. Hi,
Hello.
how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
We're just kind of waiting for Anna and Tyler to show up. There's Anna. Hello. Robert, can you show your face again so we can get started? All right. As soon as Anna comes back, we're going to get started and we'll see what happens when Tyler gets here. Hopefully we'll get started and he'll show up pretty quickly. So how did the homework go for you two? 3 really, but were you able to figure it out?
Oh, and just so you know, I completely changed my plot. Same character, but totally different plot.
That's okay. It's your story. You can do whatever you want to it. Just, you know, so we have something to work with in class. How about you, Robert? How did your homework go?
What?
How did your homework go?
It went pretty well.
Okay. Anna, are you still there with us somewhere, or? All right, we'll give her another minute. So everybody has an antagonist now? All right, we're going to get started and then Anna and Tyler can catch up. So Robert, we'll start with you since you were the first one in here. Were you able to determine the character arc for your main character? Oh, Anna's back, okay. Can you hear me, Robert?
Yeah.
So were you able to come up with your character arc, and what is it if you did?
Yeah.
Okay. And it is what? Go on. He has computer problems from what I understand. Okay. Maya, we'll talk to you next.
One moment, let me find the.
Okay.
Mine is the positive change arc.
Okay. How did you come up with that?
Like, so my character comes up with this crazy lie in her mind, then she is told the truth and like accepts that truth. So,
Okay. And how's the story going to end?
and she ends in a better place.
And she's going to end in a better place. Okay. And did you come up with an antagonist?
Yes. So since I totally changed the story from when we last did the Zoom, now the antagonist is her own like mental idea, like her own ideas in her mind, just like overtaking her, basically.
Okay.
It's not human.
So it's going to be man versus self.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now you're going to have a little bit of a row to hoe then. Because you're going to have to, base the conflicts on that.
Yeah, most of the stories that I've written before are man versus self, so.
Okay. All right. So what is the problem that's going to need fixing?
So she's believing this crazy lie that like doesn't make sense, but like in her mind she just keeps convincing herself. So she's just like ruining what's happening, or sort of ruining her life from the inside almost. So she has to be told that that lie isn't true, and that's basically the problem, just her like having a mental breakdown, I guess, or something.
Okay, and what is going to be her want or goal in the story?
Let me find that one second.
So that's going to be her flaws too. What are her flaws, and what do the flaws make her think she wants?
So her flaws is that she's really stubborn and she always believes like the worst. She like just jumps to conclusions that it's always the worst thing that's going to happen and not anything better than that. So yeah.
Okay. And what need or life lesson needs to be learned?
One second. Where are we? So what you believe isn't always the truth. And don't always hop to the conclusion that the worst is always like, yeah.
Okay.
So
And since it's a her versus self, antagonist, what does the antagonist want?
they want to be right. In her mind, she wants her ideas to be right.
Okay.
Yeah. Tyler's hearing.
And well, her beef with the protagonist is going to be herself.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Anna, your turn. Did you figure out what the arc was?
I think so. It's going to be
Okay.
the same as Maya, like it's going to be positive.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so how's it going to start and how's it going to end?
Well, first off, the girl's not going to know something about her own self, and at the end, she's going to like gain like knowledge and like strength and just more understanding.
Okay. Tyler, can you show us your face for a minute?
Fine, 1 minute.
Okay, well, we're going to keep going, so. Hello. Okay, so Anna, what is the problem that's going to need fixing?
Like the problem is going to be that there's a group of people that needs to be like wiped out.
Okay. And what is the character's want, or the character's goal in this case, but based on their flaws? What are their flaws and what do they want because of those flaws?
Well, I mean, so mine is like, yeah, okay. Anyway, she really wants to like learn about her past
Okay.
and what may be her future, because like once she learns about the past, it kind of leads into her future.
Okay. And does she have any flaws in there that she's going
The
to
flaws is that like someone is trying to convince, I mean, she's smart, but she also can see there's two sides, and she can see like the good points of both sides, and so she's kind of like torn between like which side to choose,
Okay.
basically.
Okay. And what is the life lesson or need
That you can't always trust, or that you like don't always just trust like who you want to. Like you can't, some people that you want to trust just cannot be trusted.
Okay, it looks like Robert got back in. Okay. And the antagonist, what does the antagonist want?
The antagonist wants to get her on their side and have her help with a cause that she knows is bad, but they also make good points. So it's,
Okay, and what is their beef with the protagonist?
wait, sorry, say that again.
The beef, what do they have against the protagonist?
That she's not on their side.
Ah.
They want her on their side because she would be a strong advocate for them.
Okay, so there's probably more than, well, obviously they think she's stronger than she thinks she is, right?
Yeah, she doesn't think she's strong, or like she doesn't think she's important at first, but she finds out like, oh, I am important. Like
Yeah.
I do have a say in this.
So she has to learn her worth. That's going to be one of her things.
Yeah.
Then one of her flaws is those doubts that she's not a worthwhile person.
She doubts herself a lot.
Okay. All right. Tyler, did you figure out what the character arc was for your protagonist?
Yes. At first, I thought there wasn't really gonna be a character arc, but then as I got into class today, I'm thinking, well, actually, yeah, I think it would be good if I had a very subtle, positive change arc.
Okay.
Not that big of one, but still an arc.
Well, there's going to be an arc. Even if you don't think there's an arc, there's going to be an arc because there's something is going to happen to your character that's going to change them.
Okay, is that a challenge? My arc will be no arc. It will be a pointy triangle.
It could be a flat arc, so the character will believe a truth, maintain that truth, and use the truth to overcome the world's lie. The character won't change, but the world and the supporting characters will.
Yeah, actually, I just thought of something.
Right?
Some good comparison. It's kind of like a video game where you're discovering more and more things about the past. You're just putting the pieces together. Like you're discovering more and more pieces of the puzzle, and then at right before the climax, you sort of piece them all together.
Okay. So it sounds like you have a flat arc going on then.
Not really. Very subtle positive change arc. They're going to believe a lie, but it's not actually going to be that obvious that, oh, hey, here's what they're believing. It may or not be true.
Okay. All right. So what is the problem that needs fixing?
The organization, the bad organization, I'm not sure what it's called yet, is just like you've got like a stranglehold on the entire world and everyone in it. They're cutting down the environment for their own personal gain, and they have the power to help people, but people are dying and they're not helping people. Just like a lot of bad stuff is happening.
Okay. And what does the character want, and what are their flaws? What are his flaws?
Okay. The character wants to take down the organization and pretty much help everyone, and also wants to discover more about his past or his family's past.
Okay, and what is going to be his flaws?
I told you, he's a work alone, take no risks kind of guy.
Okay. And what need or life lesson is going to be accomplished with the story?
Actually, I just think it was. My aim was just to make an entertaining story, not really to have a life lesson. I mean, it may have a life lesson as I develop it, but so far, I don't think there's going to be one.
Okay, so if you remember,
Other than, of course, working, like, you can't change the world alone.
right. If you remember when we were talking last week, I said, or last week, sorry, on Wednesday, that what your character wants and what your character needs are going to be two different things.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, so even if it's not a life lesson learned, what is the need that has to be learned? And you just mentioned
Like
it.
for the real world or the story?
The story.
I
What
don't
needs
know
to
yet.
change in the story to get from point A to point Z?
Well, the organization is too big right now, and they have too many people on their side. Well, not really. A lot of people, the people that have bad things have happened to them, no, but they can't really do anything now. So, what was I gonna say?
What does the world need to be fixed? Let's put it
Oh,
that way.
right. They need to just take down the organization that's pretty much just ruining the planet.
Okay, and
And
you did say something about your character is a loner and likes to work on his own. So maybe the part of the lesson he needs to learn is
oh yeah, he can't change the world alone.
right. He needs.
Oh, right. Now I remember what I was going to say. They kind of have to go in stealth, like make sure that they're not known. Otherwise, it would be like stepping on an ant. They have to get far enough and exploit the organization until they've got enough power on their side. And then at that point, take on the organization and end them.
Okay. All right, and we pretty much covered your antagonists. Then they want to control the world, and they don't
For
want
own
the
personal
protagonist,
gain, yeah.
and they don't want the protagonist to turn.
But first, they don't even know about the protagonist.
Okay. All right. Robert, are you back with us? It's like every time I try and talk to him, he disappears. Okay, so we're going to move on then. We're going to talk about conflict. And the reason I had you going through this exercise.
Wait, are you talking about a conflict?
No,
I'm an expert at doing that, but in real life.
I would like to talk to the whole class right now. Okay, Tyler?
Okay.
So can you hold your comments until I ask for them? Okay, thank you. All right, so we want to talk about conflict. And the reason I asked you to come up with your antagonists and their flaws is because those are the things that you need to build the conflicts. So conflict fuels the fiction and frustration fuels the conflict. So you don't want your character to have a happy moment in your story. And if you think of your story like a roller coaster with many little hills, and then finally at the end it has one huge big hill, it's kind of what your story should be like. And those little hills are conflicts, and they get bigger and a little bit more intense the higher you climb until finally you get to the climax. And I will share a link to a plot roller coaster with you so you can see what I'm talking about. Anyway, so you don't want your character to be happy. So whether he's on the top of one of those little hills or he's down in the valley between the hills, you want something to be happening to him to make him unhappy. So you want to be looking at your story and saying, okay, where's my character happy? And then you're going to have to throw a conflict in there. So Robert is back again. See if we can. Hello, Robert. Are you with us or not? Not.
So I think At this point, I think I know Robert well enough. I don't actually think that he is just leaving. I actually think he's having internet problems.
Yeah, I think so, because when I talked to him about it Wednesday before everybody came in, he said he had sometimes had internet issues. So, yeah. So I'm going to keep on going. So you want to look at your story and you want to see if there's a place where your character is content or happy. You want to throw a conflict in. Be it a little conflict, you still want to have some conflict. So part of your homework for Monday, and you've got a whole week, you got a whole extra day to do it now, is going to be to write a list of the 10 worst things that could happen to your character in relation to the story. So Maya
Do
and
all of them have to be things that actually happen?
no,
Okay, just the 10 worst things that can happen. Probably like the mediocre, not so bad ones will happen, then there will be one really bad one.
if you're writing a novel, I would recommend that you have at least 3 really big conflicts. But these 10 things that you're coming up with, I mean, you can have a couple of your big conflicts on there, but I also want little conflicts. And as I continue this conversation, you'll see what I'm talking about. So remember I said about the roller coaster, and you go up a roller coaster, so that's your conflict. You come down off that conflict, and you're kind of in a valley, or you're going around a bend and you've got a flat area that's smooth. Well, you don't want your character to be happy there either. So that's where you're going to go back and look at this list of 10 things that could happen and throw one of them into that valley. You understand, Tyler? Okay. So you're going to write a list of the 10 worst things that could happen to your character. And Anna and Maya, you two, yours is going to be interesting since their antagonist is self. So, but if you think about like your best friend, you don't get along with them 100% of the time. And those are things that you're going to be able to use for your conflicts. And we'll cover that as I get a little bit further into this. So you want to vary the intensity and the variety of your conflicts. You want to have the thrilling scenes. So these are the ones that are going to be at the top of the little hills that you're climbing. But you also want to have low-key sequel conflicts, and these happen between the big conflicts. In every single scene, you want to have some type of conflict. And I'm going to give you a couple of ways that you can come up with that. But you want to remember that frustrations can be niggling murmurs. So they can be something small, as simple as the weather holding your character back from getting what they want. So if you have no or very weak frustration, you want to go back to that list of 10 things that you came up with and pull something off that list to increase the tension in the conflict, whether it's at the top of the hill or down in the valley. So what you want to do is you want to constantly, throughout the story, deny the characters what they want. So a couple ways to do this. The first one is personality clashes. And this is where I just said about you don't get along with your best friend 100% of the time. Your character is going to be going through this story with some kind of companion, some kind of teacher, parent, probably not a parent, but maybe a teacher, best friend, a pet. You want to create personality clashes between them and whoever they're traveling through the story with. But they must be realistic reasons. You don't want to have a clash be something that is totally uncharacteristic for the secondary character that you're clashing with. So you want to craft your characters to push each other's buttons. Now, obviously, the main antagonist of your story, which we've all determined who that is going to be the guy that's really, I mean, he's behind all the big ones. He's the one that's throwing all the rocks down the hill and preventing the antagonist from reaching his final goal. But you can also use conflict with minor characters. Your antagonist is anyone, I repeat that, anyone who stands in the way of the character getting what he wants. So using that, Maya and Anna, you might not have as much of a problem as I thought, because there are bound to be other people that are going to present arguments to them. And I'm sure the same is with you, Tyler, that there are going to be things that other characters present to your main character that's going to prevent him from getting what he wants. So another thing to think about and possibly use is unexpected situations. So you want to force your characters into situations and relationships that go against what they've come to believe, what their moral values are, whatever. But just force your characters into those situations where they have to confront then things that don't agree with the way their life has been to that point. Welcome back, Robert. Are you able to talk to us, or? Okay, the next one I'm going to suggest is high stakes. One of the things you could use as high stakes is a tight timeline where you give your characters a deadline. And I'm not saying to use this for the overall climax, although that would help a lot. That would help. I'm talking about using this in your smaller conflicts where you give the characters a deadline and have disagreeable consequences. And remember that those disagreeable consequences can go either way. They can be disagreeable if he gets what he wants out of the conflict, or they can be disagreeable if he doesn't get what he wants. So that's something to think about it. We talked about this a little on Wednesday when we were talking about the character and we were talking about inner and outer conflicts. Obviously, your character's flawed. They have fears, they have doubts. Those are their inner conflicts. They can, and usually do, feed the outer conflicts, the conflicts against the antagonist. Think of it like this. They have a fear of speaking in public and speaking to large groups of people, and they're an introvert. So you force your character into a situation where they have to speak in front of a large group of people. Now, two of their fears are going to be confronted, and they are going to have to figure out a way to either get through it or not get through it, and that's going to contribute to the tension in the story. So remember, every scene must have some level of conflict. Does everybody know what foreshadowing is? I believe I talked about this with you before. Everybody knows what it is. So you can use foreshadowing and tension to build your conflicts at a steady rate to build to your climax. You want to have balance, though. You don't want to be totally without conflict, because then you really just don't have much of a story at all. But you also don't want to have no pauses so you can catch your breath. So you need both large and small. And remember, I was saying that if you think of the roller coaster, So they go up a small hill, they confront their first conflict, whatever it is, come down off the hill. They may or may not have done it successfully, and I would recommend that you don't have them be successful in every one of the conflicts they go through. They went into the conflict not knowing everything they needed to know. They come out of the conflict learning something. So now they're down in the valley on the straight path. You think, oh, life is going to be good and quiet and peaceful. They're going to be able to breathe for a minute. But don't let that be the case. First of all, they want to figure out what they learned in the last conflict. Then they want to plan how they're going to use it to move forward. And this is one of those places then where you go back to that list of 10 worst things that could happen to your character, grab hold of it and throw it in there. Throw some kind of conflict. It can be as simple as, like I said before, the weather turns bad and they have to find a place to hide for the night and get out of the snowstorm or the thunderstorm or the tornado or whatever it is. They can fight over what they're going to eat for dinner. It can be as simple as that, but you need to have some kind of small conflict in there. And then again, they're going to be doing some planning in the process, and then they're going to be into their next conflict. Again, with their next conflict, they're not going to know everything going into it to solve the problem. They're going to come out of it having learned something. And again, we're going to be in a valley, and it's going to repeat itself. And like I said, for the bigger conflicts you want, I would say you need at least 3 before your climax. And with every single one, they're going to go in not knowing everything they need to know, and they're going to come out of it learning something that they can use in the next one. Each of those conflicts is going to get a little bit bigger than the last one, because you want to continually be increasing the tension and having your readers say, oh no, what's going to happen next? You want them kind of on the edge of their seats, although you do want to give them those little valleys too. You want the reader to breathe, not the character. So keep that in mind. So if anybody have any questions before I move on? Everybody good? Okay. So I don't know if I talked about this before, but a story is set up in 5 parts, 5 or 7 parts, depending on how you count them. I'm going to just go with 5 and combine the parts I need to combine to make it 5. The first part is the setup. That's where you introduce your character, your setting, a little bit of the conflict. It's an important part of the story as far as the character introduction goes, because this is where the reader finds out what the flaws are that the character has, what their world looks like before the inciting incident, which is what we're going to talk about next. And basically, you need to really introduce your character as much as you can, so your reader's going to know as much as they possibly can going into the inciting incident. And then you're going to have, let me double check. No, okay. So the next phase of the story is called the inciting incident, or the catalyst of your story. And this scene disrupts the status quo with a life-changing event. And it directly influences the story to follow. The story can't happen without an inciting incident, because your inciting incident is going to create the conflicts that your character is going to have to go through to get to the other end of the story. Change causes an atmosphere of conflict. The more change, the deeper the conflict. So you really want this inciting incident to be a big deal. You don't want something small, because this is where you're going to grab hold of your reader and have them rooting for your character. So you've introduced your character in the setup. They know your character's flaws. Now in the inciting incident, it's going to be big enough that your reader is going to care about what happens to your character. So everybody's got that, right? This is a big deal. Okay. So basically, you don't want to settle for something mundane. It can't be, you know, just a simple little thing. It has to be something big. It should be followed by action. Pretty quickly, it should be followed by action. So just because your character decides that he's going to take action, his decision is not irrevocable until the action is taken. So there's going to be a small, little short scene after the inciting incident. It's called the debate scene, where the character is going to argue about whether or not he wants to go on. And he's going to make a choice about things. But until he actually takes action, he can go back to eating his Pop-Tarts or playing his video games or whatever. So remember that conflict translates into action. This inciting incident forever changes the status quo. It forces the main character to react. It sends the main character's life in an entirely new direction. It always happens to the main character. And it should be something active and something big. The question to ask yourself after the inciting incident is, can the hero or your main character easily return to their normal life or continue doing what they were doing after this happens? If your answer is yes, it was not big enough. If the answer is no, you're heading in the right direction. Okay, so we have any questions here?
Yes. If what wasn't big enough?
The inciting incident.
Okay.
Okay, and you understand what the inciting incident is, right?
No.
The catalyst. Whatever it is that's disrupting the status quo. It's usually a single scene. And like I said, it's going to send your main character's life in an entirely new direction. It is an active scene, and it always happens to the main character. And then we have another scene, which is called the debate scene. And this is where you get the opportunity to show how resistant your main character is to the change that's been forced upon him. And it also serves to prepare your main character for what's up ahead. So if you think about your story as in 3 acts, what we've just talked about, the setup, the catalyst, and the debate, is all in the first act. So then next week, next Monday, we'll talk about Act 2 and what happens in Act 2, but because that's where we go once he gets through the debate phase. And that's going to be where all of your action happens. And if you remember the roller coaster I was telling you about, all those little conflicts are going to happen in what's called the rising action phase. So you have your setup when you get on your roller coaster, then you have your inciting incident and your debate phase just as you start to climb the first hill. Okay, so everybody's clear where this is falling in the story, right? Okay, so in the debate phase then, this is a chance for your character to react to the catalyst. Usually this is in the form of a question, and I believe, Maya, when you were telling me about your character and what they're going through, it's going to be questions like, what do I do? Should I go? Should I stay? How will I survive? What happens next? It's going to be those kind of questions that your character's debating with himself. Like I said, your hero debates. So you're in this phase of the story, you're showing the hero's resistance, or your main character's resistance to what's happened. And this is also the phase where they're going to take time to prepare for the journey. They're going to gather supplies if they need them. They're going to train if there's time. You don't want to spend a lot of time on training, but they may do some training here. And it's also an opportunity for mental preparation, physical and emotional preparation. And then we're into Act 2, which, like I said, we'll discuss on Monday. But Act 2 is an upside down version of the world that your character has just left. So that gives you a little clue where we'll be going next week when we talk about Act 2 and moving forward with your conflict. Okay, questions? Okay, so your homework then is to come up with those 10 frustrations. And then I want you to write the inciting incident and also the debate scene after the inciting incident. And then if you can figure it out, please, please, I'm begging you, post the homework in the classroom so we can take a look at it and discuss it in the classroom instead of you trying to read it to me. And I mean, it's as easy as, if you're doing this on a computer, copying it off of your computer and pasting it. I wouldn't suggest that you supply your only copy, because you want a copy of it on your computer too. But yeah, if you can figure out some way to get it into the classroom, I think that would be really good for our use of classroom time, to be able to go over it. Okay, so Anna, yes, I will type you the message. But it is 10 worst things that can happen to your character, your inciting incident, and then the debate phase after the inciting incident, and what's going to set them up for the next phase of the story. Okay, questions? Everybody understands what's going on? Did you get everything, Anna? Because I noticed you weren't quite there for a moment. And you do know that there's videos in the classroom that you can access if you've missed something or you need clarification on something. You can always, it takes about an hour after class to come up, but you can always do that, and you can email me through the classroom if you have any questions, and I will try and get in there and answer any questions you may have. Okay? Well, if you just don't have any questions, then I guess I can let you go for the week, and I will see you on Monday. All right. Thank you, ladies, for being so cooperative. I'll see you next week. Robert, if you're there.
So just the 10 things.
10 things, an inciting incident. Did you hear that part of the discussion?
I don't think so.
Okay. The inciting incident, I'll go over it really quickly if you don't mind sticking around for a few minutes, because I have nothing
I
else
don't mind.
going on. Okay. So we'll go back here. Just go back to my notes. The inciting incident. It's the catalyst. It disrupts the status quo with a life-changing event.
Okay.
directly
I
influences?
have that.
Okay, you got all that?
Yeah, I have that incident already done. I already know what that life-changing thing's gonna be.
Okay, and then I want you to write the debate phase of the story that comes after that. Did you get that part of it, or did
Mm,
you read?
what does that mean? Sorry.
Okay, so let me just find my notes. Someday I'll have all these notes in one place all together. Okay, so the debate phase comes immediately after the catalyst. And you got to remember, your character is reluctant to be going on this journey.
Yeah.
So what you want to do in the debate phase is show how resistant the hero is to change, and it also prepares your main character for the break or for the transition into Act 2. Because once we hit Act 2, then everything's going to be totally different. So this is the time for your character to react to the catalyst.
Okay.
And it usually happens in the form of a question, like, what do I do? Should I go? Should I stay? How will I survive? What happens next? The hero is going to debate with himself and with whoever he's with about what they're going to do. You want to show the main character's resistance, but then, like I said, you also need kind of preparation time for the journey. Not a lot. You don't want to dwell in this scene a really long time. So they're going to gather supplies. They're going to train if need be, but they're not going to do a lot of training up front. I think the training's probably going to happen more along the journey, but they can do some initial training. It's also a chance for some mental preparation, physical and emotional preparation.
Okay.
So the homework is then to write the 10 things, then write the inciting incident and the debate phase. Because what happens then next week, we move into Act 2 of the story, and that world is a totally upside down version of the world we just left.
Okay.
So you're setting your character up for the next phase.
Thank
Okay?
you.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for last week too, like I said. And we just have to figure out how to tolerate him.
It's like, stop
Yeah.
talking.
I think he did better today.
Well, it did, but like, come on.
Yeah, well, I had to sit on him, but yeah.
Yeah, you're like, can you not?
Yeah. Okay. I will see you Monday then, and thank you.
Bye.
Bye.